Welcome to the Art Studio Insights podcast, where we demystify the creative process and exchange ideas with career-minded artists. With your hosts, Adriana, May, and
Jackie Sanders. We're two emerging artists sharing forward the advice and business lessons we have learned along our journey. And if you are not already, please go ahead and subscribe to our podcast. This will help other creatives like you find our show, and you'll be notified when we drop a new episode every Tuesday.
And on this week's episode, we are going to be talking about utilizing technology in the art making process. But before we do that, how was your week, Jackie?
This week has been so much fun. As you know, obviously, we officially launched this week, which is so exciting. Obviously, from a technology standpoint, that has been a very large hurdle for us. There's so many things behind the scenes that we will share in future episodes that go into making this podcast, but even just from a marketing front, that's always where my brain goes. So updating our websites, putting out newsletters, putting out blog posts, social media, and like getting all those things tied together. That's where basically my brain with technology has been this week, because with the launch, it has just been so exciting to have people listen to episodes that we've recorded, and also to just get people's feedback, all of the super supportive messages. I don't know about you, Adriana. I know we've talked a bit, but that has completely made my week. Hearing that people have found one of our first couple episodes helpful, or that they're listening to it in the car, because we love listening to podcasts, whether making art or like in the car, and now being like, people are listening to us, which is insane and so cool.
It definitely makes all the blood, sweat, and tears, or however that expression goes. It makes it so worth it when someone says, like, actually, I did like that. Like, I actually did enjoy that. It's like, okay, like staying up till the wee hours trying to edit, and troubleshoot a video that doesn't want to render, or an audio file that got messed up in the middle of it. Like, hearing that the effort has paid off. Like that someone's like, I actually enjoyed it. And that, to me, that's everything,
Right.
It just makes it all worth it. And speaking of technology, this definitely ties in. So in learning how to edit video and, everything that goes behind the scenes to edit a podcast, been a lot of work, a lot of learning curves with a lot of different programs, which is fine. Challenge accepted. Technology and I have been best friends since,
another tool in your belt of skills that you can, you always get more efficient over time. It gets easier, but it has been definitely troubleshooting a lot and embracing that learning curve, especially on your end, because you are Miss Technology in ways that I am not, that we will go into on this episode.
Technology and I have always been friends. We do fight sometimes, but trying to learn all the technology and then troubleshooting. And at one point, my computer was just not wanting to participate in all this editing thing. And then as part of what I've been doing this week actually is opening the computer up and swapping some things out and doing upgrades. And that's where I'm really glad that some years ago, I used to work with computers where I was building and repairing them. So it wasn't scary, only in the sense of like, wait, I haven't done it in a while. Do I still remember? I do. Thankfully, like this is why we're still recording today, because it worked. Hey.
If anyone was on your Instagram stories this week, then they may have seen the insides of your computer, which when I saw it, I was like, this is absolutely terrifying. It does not even cross my mind to open my computer. Like the furthest thing from my mind is actually opening it up, because I'll just instantly break it more. So
well, we're rendering video and editing audio and things like that for the podcast. And even though, I mean, I love my laptop, don't get me wrong, and it's meant for gaming, which still works out for what we need it, etc. It was just struggling a little bit. So I knew it was time to put some upgrades in there. And that was a lot of fun. But I won't geek out on that one, and like what kind of hard drive went in and kind of upgrade and what kind of connection. That's way too much nerddom.
Oh my goodness.
I
That sounds
know,
like
I
a
know.
that sounds like a fun creative blog post that you may have to look into. Behind the scenes of
Yeah.
the computer. Or I guess there's other
Behind the
blogs.
canvas, there's a nerd, a computer nerd. It's me.
Yeah. In the same way you like geek out over computers and video editing, I completely geek out over like marketing software. So in my day
Yes.
job, I do digital marketing. So just like you updating your hard drive or software chips, that's sure the things that are in computer. Like
Sure.
I'm always looking to optimize like newsletters or blogs. And I mean, I use Squarespace for my website, which is super efficient. So really trying to troubleshoot what's the best process, how can both of us optimize releasing our episodes, but also just like our creative practice. But all those programs are obviously marketing based, which we will go into on
At
another.
some other time. Yeah, yeah. For this particular episode, we just want to talk about some of our favorite programs that are a little bit more closely tied to the creative
Yeah.
process, to the art making process itself. We'll definitely have to have episodes devoted to the ones we use for marketing efforts. But for
Mhm.
today, it's a little bit more centered on the ones tied to art. So, Jackie, how about you kick us off on that one?
Yeah. So I feel like from a very young age, like when I was going into college, I wanted to major in art. And so that was a huge factor for me of even like picking which school I wanted to go to. So at Virginia Tech, where I went for my undergrad and graduate school, they had a huge focus even then, which was 10 years ago at this point, of really integrating technology with the arts. So in addition to sculpture classes, there was also a sculpture with technology class where you learn how to use a 3D printer, a laser, CO2 laser, and all these different technologies in a fine art practice. And so I love that point of view. I feel like that kind of integrated my ideas of what was possible as a fine artist, and really embracing technology. So, one technology that I use a lot is Corel Draw. So it's a design software. The easiest way I can explain it is it's very similar to Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Suite is kind of the dominant design platform a lot of the time. But Corel is actually the leading program that's compatible with CO2 lasers. So that sounds like way fancier than it actually is, or maybe I'm just numb to it. But I used to work at a company where we had all of this industrial size machinery. So a CO2 laser essentially uses a laser to cut through material. So everything from plastic to wood to like engraving marks onto these materials. And so in my practice, I use acrylic that's custom cut by a CO2 laser, which again, going not as deep into my process, from a design art making standpoint, I use Corel Draw. And so even though I use that to finalize my designs from a process standpoint, I always start with in-person drawings. Some people use technology in the middle of their process or to brainstorm designs, which,
Mhm.
yes, Adriana, I know you do that, which I totally admire. And I don't know if it is just because that's, again, how I started making art was just with marker and paper and drawing. But I find that I can only make creative decisions in like real space. What once I get to technology, it almost feels like it's just plug and play at that point. I'm either like tracing drawings that I've already scanned in. I might make some minor tweaks if there's a color decision or if like compositionally there is something like glaringly off. And because I draw in Sharpie, I can't erase it.
Yeah.
So if I'm like,
So
I
you're
really
you're
want
mostly like start on paper, essentially, like you have to have the paper element to it.
right, exactly. And I think that's just from a focus standpoint. Like when I'm looking at the screen, I mean, everyone knows that feeling of being like so locked in of like the blue light. You almost get like mesmerized and you lose track of time. And then
I'm off to the
whether it
light.
is, yeah, whether it's the creative process, whether it's watching Netflix, whether it's getting sucked into your email inbox, like it does suck you in. And so I find that I really need to disconnect from that and do it in person first, then take it digital, use technology to bring it back to physical space. So it's kind of this jump back and forth between real life, digital presence, real life. Um, and so, especially with that, I really only use Corel probably about once a month, I would say. I like to kind of like, we talk a lot about like bulk making work, whether it's okay, prepping a lot of panels at the same time and making paintings in a series, or like what I like to do with my drawings is getting a handful that I know I need to digitize. Then, okay, here's my week to digitize the drawings, get them ready to be printed, get them ready to be cut, and then send them off rather than doing it one at a time. So I'm kind of like pushing off how I use technology and really batching it in my creative process, which I feel like is very different from what you do, Adriana, because I feel like we talked about earlier, you're always using technology, right?
Yeah, I am. And also going back in time a little bit, I got really lucky because even though I went to business school, I majored in marketing, which has come in very handy, obviously.
Yes. I feel like that's
And
why we get along so well too. Like we both know just enough of technology and just enough
enough of
about
marketing.
marketing.
We
But
bootstrap this.
but then we like play to each other's strengths too. Like we can talk about it enough to each other to like formulate a plan and then set a system, but then we both have different strengths, which works so well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got really lucky that even though I went to business school, I did major in marketing. And even back then, this is a little bit of a little bit ago, they did have an emphasis on technology as well, just like they did at your school. And it definitely was overkill back in the day, but that's where I learned Photoshop and some of the other Adobe programs, at least at a base level, and how technology could be used with marketing. So that was
Mm,
really, really useful. And I mean, ever since then, that just opened those doors and those floodgates have never closed. I've always, had technology
yeah,
always with me, no matter where I work or what I do. At least when it comes to creative, programs, right?
right.
Um,
And it's definitely that
Side by
element of like
side.
you have to embrace it because like that's the way of the future. And it's so cool that you had that foundation of like business and marketing training with technology.
Yeah. And I remember back in the day, not that old, but
Way
anyways.
back when.
Not that old, thank you. But I do remember back in the day, we had these tablets that were essentially you had a pencil, right? And an electronic
Yes.
pencil, if you will, and then you would see it on your screen. I believe they were called Wacom,
Yes. I
probably
remember those were
butchering
like
that,
all the
like
rage as
Wacom
well.
Bamboo tablets,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, exactly. And it just revolutionized it because now instead of me having to use Photoshop and an old school mouse, now with these like type of tablets, you had a little bit more control and pressure. And I'm going into all the nerdy details, but
Yeah, you could actually draw. And again, it's almost my process. I feel like I need to maybe talk to you about your tablet where it's like rather than drawing it, putting it on the computer and then tracing it, you can just trace right on the screen. Oh, you just
correct,
draw right on the screen and it's
correct.
technology. Yeah.
And this is where, I mean, I've moved away from those obviously and moved on to iPads,
Oh
iPad.
yeah. I say you
I
got
don't have
multiple?
several.
You
I
fancy.
do have an old one hanging around. Maybe you can play with that one. But essentially, if you think about it, they're a digital notebook, they're a digital
Yeah.
sketchbook. So it's very similar in many ways to the experience of having a sketchbook, but now it's
Yeah.
one that records your movements digitally and you can have motions and gestures and things like that. And for folks hearing on the podcast and not watching the video, you can't see me just
See the
doing all
brushing
these
motion
curves.
that
Yeah,
she's
I'm like
doing.
I'm like signing the air
Yeah.
essentially. But with different programs, and obviously over time they've evolved and they're more sophisticated than they used to be. Um, it's not the same. I know how you explained that feel of when you're sitting in front of a computer, whether it's a laptop or a PC with a monitor,
Right.
etc. where it's just kind of like, you're right, it kind of sucks you in. With I feel like with a tablet, it's completely different. This is something you have on your lap, not
Yeah.
sitting in front of you. So it's literally more, at least for my practice, right? It's definitely more like that feel of that piece of paper. And
Yeah.
again, it's a digital pencil, but it's like a pencil. I mean, it's even about the same size. And the fact that you can make so many changes to it and pick so many options. Um,
Mm. Yeah,
I
I didn't
mainly
really think about that. That
use
makes sense.
yeah, it's just a different feel because I agree with you. I can't for my art practice, I never do it on the laptop or on a PC, like sitting at a
Yeah.
desk. It, it just
I feel
feels
like the
wrong.
tablet's, like, more approachable, and
It
yeah,
is.
you can take it on the go, and it's not as aggressive, and also just, of course, from a school standpoint or from a corporate standpoint, be like, "Okay, you're at your desk, have double monitor in
No,
front
this
of
is a
you."
completely different
Your Yeah,
feel.
your brain is just meant to work in a different way versus a tablet or yeah, if you're
Yeah, like
drawing on
this
the
you can,
screen.
you can lay back on the sofa with this thing sitting
Oh,
on your lap, and while you're watching TV, you can sketch. And instead of taking a sketchbook around, the other really cool thing about it, and I'll say some of the programs I'm into here in a second, is with a lot of these, you can choose, oh, I want to do a watercolor. So you turn
that
your pencil into the
oh,
equivalent of watercolor or oil or acrylic or
so cool.
graphite, but you can be at a cafe, or at somebody's house. You don't have to bring all those art materials with you
Right.
because now some of these programs are so sophisticated that you can literally
So cool.
imitate, replicate.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to call it, but essentially it looks almost like the real deal. It'll never be the same. For the record,
Right.
at least in that part, I'm gonna say I'm old school. It will never be the same as the real thing in my eyes. I do love digital art, but it's still different. Um, but
But
it
especially
can
for
get you darn
planning out a
close.
painting. Yeah, and, like, for planning
Yeah.
things out and brainstorming.
Yeah, and that's part of how I use it. So it's really cool. So in my process, I use it in a few different ways. I use it before I paint a lot of times, not always, but before I paint, during, and even after to test different things out. Like, what if I change this color? What if I make this shape bigger? What if I darken this area? If
Right.
I turn it into black and white, do I have enough value contrast in this painting?
Right.
So I
I think that's
definitely
an
use it.
awesome tip.
Yeah, because 'cause I'm like, it definitely makes it more efficient, and I feel in my way in the way I do it, I should say, it definitely makes it more of a pleasurable painting experience instead of trial and error, trial and error. There is no
Right.
undo in painting, really. So if you do it in a digital format, even if I'm in the middle of a painting, I can literally take, a picture of it. I can literally take a picture of it and then see what it looks like with a different swatch of color or even a different technique and then just roll with it. I
Right,
mean, and that
exactly.
to me is amazing. And then um in its current role, the way I use it today, right? I definitely use it several times a week, if not daily, almost.
Yep, I feel like you always have your
Sometimes
iPad out,
oh,
like,
I
on your
always
paint
carry
card.
it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
always carry it with me. Sometimes I literally have my iPad precariously leaning on top of a painting on the easel. It's a little living a little dangerously here.
Get wild,
Um,
it's getting crazy.
well, because I may have kind of like the idea that I'm going for. And, for those folks that are not using, a tablet, you can still do this on a computer and print it out and then just tape it to the wall. Like this is the equivalent of it. This to
Right.
me is just a little more real time because I can make changes on the fly and then see kind of a preview of where I'm going next.
Right.
I can still take my own path. This is not color by numbers, people, but I can still look at some potential changes and
Yeah,
be like, "Oh, that color didn't work out. Let me try something else," before I mix the
exactly.
color. You still need that experience on the canvas itself. You still need that experience on your mixing palette. Like nothing's going to replace that, but it can definitely help before you go into those processes. So sorry, I
Right.
went a little nerdy out there. I'm
No,
like, I absolutely love this, but I mean, it really can help with color schemes and planning and perspectives and compositions and like everything that makes traditional art what it is. A lot of it can be assisted by technology.
right,
Doesn't have to be replaced
exactly.
by technology, but it can be assisted
Yeah.
by it.
And I feel like your process is that perfect example of like, just because you work in a traditional medium, that doesn't mean that you need to be intimidated by technology or like completely dismiss it. And you've definitely taught me that. And even though my literal production process uses technology and industrial sized machinery, like showing the different ways that you can even incorporate it into your fine art making painting process is so cool. And so there's so many benefits, like you were just starting to talk about, of using it in that process. So what do you feel
Mhm.
like is one of the like highlights of using technology in that way?
Definitely how much time it can save you. So you can use it for
Yeah.
decision making, you can use it for brainstorming, you can use it as a creative warm up, which is one of our previous episodes.
Right.
Um, you can use it to just doodle. You're at the DMV line and you're bored out of your wits.
Mhm.
Take out your tablet and just sketch while you wait. I
Yeah.
mean, you can use it on you're on a train, you're on a bus, like it doesn't matter. You're on a plane, like it doesn't matter. And it's so nice and portable. But, anyways, as it
Right.
relates to the art making practice, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Um,
Yeah.
you
And I
can
feel like
easily undo, you can change
Mhm.
your colors quickly, you can look at different alternatives and options, to move forward with your design. If you feel like you're stuck, you can literally try things out first on a digital level before you break out the paint.
Right, exactly. And I feel like the fact that it is so portable is such a huge benefit, but also depending on the studio space that you're in, it's also just super compact. Like my studio is not huge. And so where I really have to be thoughtful with my space. And especially as you and I both used to work outside of our houses, or like I was in the second bedroom of my apartment, you really
Mhm,
have
me
to
too.
be conscious of your space. And so if you can condense 15 different sketchbooks and materials down to one tablet, that's super helpful to have it right at your fingertips.
Yeah, and as part of that, now that you mentioned the 15 sketchbooks, I'm like, God forbid you leave a sketchbook out in a cafe
I
somewhere,
know.
and you're like, all these drawings you've been making, or it rained, when it got wet, or
Mhm.
like anything could happen to it, right? Versus a lot of these tablets and things, which now that reminds me, I don't think I did talk about the programs. I'll get into it in a second, but um a lot of these programs, actually, I'll just go ahead and say it now.
Yeah.
Um,
What are
I
your top programs
use
you use?
I use Procreate, which is super popular, and I really like it. But I am more of an Adobe Suite fan.
Yeah.
So I use Fresco, and I also use Illustrator for iPad a
Mm.
lot. And the good thing, no, I don't get paid by Adobe for I say this. The good thing about them, they have something called the Creative Cloud. So it allows me to sync all these different designs. So whether I am on the iPad itself, or I'm on my computer, or even on my phone, those files are backed up online and I can access them from anywhere and pick up where I left off with the other
That's super
app.
nice.
And to
Yeah.
me, that is so, so convenient because I can record something with my phone, edit it on my iPad, finish it off on the laptop. Same
Right.
file, but it's a seamless transition. And I don't have to worry about what if I lost that sketchbook. Now, don't get me wrong, I still have sketchbooks, like way too many of them, way too many of them. But for a lot of this brainstorming and things we're talking about, and also like in between the process, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah, I'd rather have it in the cloud and not be like, "Oh, I left that sketchbook in the studio." It doesn't matter. Like, if I have my tablet or
Mhm.
internet anywhere really, I can get back to those designs.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'm gonna have to consider. So I use Corel Draw, like I said earlier, and so similar to Adobe Illustrator, Corel Draw is a vector-based design software, which we don't have to go into the nitty-gritty of deciphering between all the different softwares, but rather than having the whole suite of programs, I know I just use this one, and so I just purchased that one. And because I don't have a tablet, I'm just using the desktop version, but I do
Mhm.
also back up all my programs and designs. And so having that as an option, just knowing, okay, if something were to happen to your technology, there is that backup, which is kind of a
Mhm.
nice reassurance that obviously the tactile things you can't get. Obviously, you can take photographs of it, but it's not quite the
It's not
same.
the
So there
same.
is a huge benefit of that. And I think also the ease of being able to convert those drawings or designs into other products, which we'll be doing a whole nother episode about creating art products. But the idea of turning one of your drawings that you made at a coffee shop into a sticker, into a note card, into a print that people can frame and have expanded at different sizes.
Mhm.
I know for me, that's a huge focus of mine because I absolutely love having like other art products from artists, and health and fitness is a huge part of my life. So I have this kind of big dream of having like a fitness wellness art line.
Slash art, yeah.
So like water bottles or yoga mats and towels, like anything that really helps promote a healthy lifestyle, getting people to be connected to their mind, to their body, and just more present in the moment, I think would be super cool. And obviously, having the designs already digitized just is one more barrier of entry to making art products that makes it so much easier.
Yes, it does.
Mhm.
Yeah, and another one of the benefits, you could definitely say it's the ease of collaboration with other artists.
Yeah.
So you can definitely have it. And I mean, this works with different programs where I could say, let's say one of the programs you and I use actually is Canva, right? Which we
Yeah.
haven't talked about that one, but like I can have Canva on my iPad and I can be working on a design and Jackie can sign in on Canva and make a design on the same thing I'm working on
My
and we can
little
do it at
bubble
this.
pops up and
Yes, it
we're both
does. And
doing
I'm like, there
stuff,
she is. And we can literally work on things at the same time.
which
Like
is
it's
so fun.
just, yeah, that's one part where I guess in pre-COVID times, this would have been the equivalent of us sitting right next to each other, sharing the same sketchbook and trying
Aw.
not to elbow each other. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is definitely more convenient to just do it in a digital format and with
Right.
enough social distancing.
And even though like that is more of a marketing, creating digital graphics software, I think that's the perfect example of there are so many free programs out there. And even if you don't want to financially prioritize like purchasing Adobe Suite, they do have free trials or like
Mhm,
free alternatives that might get you 60 to 70% there, kind of get your feet wet before you want to make the dive in. So that's another
mhm.
huge benefit, I think, because just like any medium, like there's a barrier of entry financially. Like, let's just be real. If I wanted to take up pottery, unless I'm either renting a pottery studio space, signing up for a class where I have access to a wheel, a kiln, clay,
All the
glazes,
things.
those are all things, or like wanting to purchase them myself, that's a big upfront cost. And I think that's a cool thing with digital because you can do a 14-day free trial and basically start with what you would then be purchasing and test it out for free. Which that is a huge tip that I got when I was in college that I'm going to pass on to anyone listening here. If you are a student, before you graduate, which is perfect because I think people are about to graduate right now, before you graduate, renew all of your design software subscriptions or any type of subscription. It doesn't even have to be art related, but lock in that student rate for one more year because I had a handful of softwares or programs that I didn't realize I was getting student rate for. And like 2 months after graduation, they remember and they're like, oh, you signed up 4 years ago. You're cut off. And you have to pay more money. So renew all of your subscriptions, design or otherwise, because it'll be very helpful.
Oh, that just brought me onto a flashback because I remember when I was in college, none of these things were like digital subscriptions. So
Right.
Photoshop, for example, was like $700, which dear Lord. And
Uh-huh.
even with a student discount, it was still a lot of money. And just like you said, once that student email didn't work anymore, oh, you bet that price went up. It was kind of
Oh,
like, I guess I'm going to use something else because
yeah.
wow, this is
Use it as
outside of my
long as you
budget.
can.
I know. I am so glad. I mean, yes, pros and cons, of course, to everything, which we're going to go
Right.
into, but I'm so glad a lot of these went to more of a subscription model. And
Right.
on top of that, a lot of them are month to month available. So you can
So
say, do I
nice.
need it? Do I not need it? ugh, do I need to cut it off? And there's no big giant commitment versus dropping $700 on a program that would be obsolete after a couple of years. So
Yes.
there's that.
A
So
learning
speaking of
curve.
cons, speaking of cons, if you are a tactile medium artist, and even
Mhm.
if you're at least like me, a painter, where I want my paintings to have bucket loads of texture,
Yes.
working digitally is not going to help you with refining your craft. You cannot carve into gesso on your iPad. Like that is something you have to learn on the actual substrate with the actual materials used to
Don't
create
try to
your
scratch into your
traditional.
screen.
Yeah, please don't scratch your screen.
Right, and I think that's, like, part of the beauty of the creative process, that we love so much are those happy accidents or those discoveries that you can't account for, and that's a lot of the time what is makes a painting as magical as it is, but yeah, you can't plan those things.
No, and you
Um
can't you learn with mistakes and you
Right.
can't undo, in real life versus digital. So,
Right. So I feel like for like the basic things in terms of composition, color value, color choices, it makes sense. But yeah, for actual your tactile medium, that obviously needs to be done in person. And I think in both the technology world and in your medium, there is a learning curve. And so of course, if you are completely new to using technology in your art making process or not used to using it in a certain way, there is always a learning curve. I mean, for
in some
using
programs, that's a
technology,
huge one too.
yeah, and for using technology as like a pretty large portion of my creative process, I would by no means call myself a tech savvy person. I mean, you guys heard earlier, freaking Adriana's over here with like screwdrivers taking her memory chips out and all these crazy things. I'm just like, Adriana, it's not working. Why isn't it working? She's like, your
Hit the
internet's off.
button.
And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there's a button you need to click. It's called the power button. Okay,
Right.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Kidding.
Like, how do you do this? No, but actually, it's kind of funny, even my old day job where I was using technology on a daily basis. I'm like, how did I get into this? Like, it's funny how using technology, you are just kind of like thrown into it, but there is that learning curve where you have to either embrace it or choose not to do it. So,
Exactly. And then there is another big, big con we need to talk about.
yeah,
Money, money, money.
money. Never.
So, yes, it's good. A lot of these have moved to subscription level. It's also good with things like an iPad. And by the way, I'm saying iPad because that's the one I use.
True.
Samsung and LG and a whole bunch of the other ones make it. Again, I don't get paid by these people, although that would be awesome.
One
Apple, if you're
day,
listening.
maybe.
um, even with an iPad, there are ways to spread the payment over time with no interest.
Right.
With all these different programs we're talking about, after the trial ends, a lot of them do have a monthly option, a month-to-month option that you can cancel anytime,
Right.
but people, it does add up. When
Yeah.
you look into it at a very minimum, in terms of my setup anyways, we're looking at an iPad,
Yeah.
not cheap, gold. Um, I need an Apple Pencil. I mean, you can use your finger, you don't have to have a pencil, but it's a much different experience. So add that
Right.
in. And in my case, I do use the Adobe subscription, which gives
Mhm.
me access to all the different apps that I use. And I use 5 or 6 of their apps regularly. So also
Right.
not cheap. I mean, it is a business expense. It's how I see it. It is what it is. Still cheaper than paying somebody to do any of those things.
Yeah, and I
So,
know for them too, you can choose to do just one program. I mean,
mhm,
that's kind of getting to the nitty-gritty of how they have it set up. But you can choose, okay, I know I'm just going to use this one program and it's X amount per month. Or if you want
yeah,
access to everything, it's obviously more, but you can
yeah,
explore, test, experiment. And yeah, it
yeah.
really is that choice of assessing if you will use it, how often will you use it? Does it justify the costs? And like
Mhm,
are you going to embrace the value it's going to bring to your process? And if you use it, 100% it is. Like that is a business expense,
mhm.
but you got to use it.
Exactly. And some of them, like say per grade, you pay $10 up front and that's it, you're done.
Which is insane.
Like one time. That's
right.
it. But again, it does mean you have to have the technology that it's used on. So
Right. So the
that's
computer or the
definitely,
iPad or whichever.
yeah, that's definitely something to think about.
Yeah. But all that being said, obviously we've gone through a lot of pros and cons of technology in the art making process. But all that being said, you obviously don't need technology to make artwork when it comes down to it, right?
No, it's one of those things. Is it nice to have? Yes. Do you need it? No, although I'll do a caveat about this real quick. Do you need it for your art making process if you're working in a traditional medium? I should specify. No. Do you still need technology? Yes, because you need to take photos of your work and upload it to websites and edit your pictures. Like there's still other things. Do you need
Right.
emails and things to, submit to exhibitions and whatever? We're just saying specifically to the art making process itself. Do you need? No. I mean, it's just a tool for you
Right.
to use. So don't ever feel like, oh, but I wish I had this and I can't make this painting series because I don't have
Yeah.
the technology to help me with it. No, you can go old school. Like that didn't stop Da Vinci from making all this amazing work. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's true. I know. It's a conversation a lot of like, well, what if the old masters had all of this technology? And normally people are phrasing it in like a complaining sort of way from a marketing standpoint, like you were saying, to take photographs, to market themselves, to do social media and websites. And it's funny because they kind of phrase it as, oh, well, they didn't have to worry about it. They only had to focus on their craft. And I'm like, they would be loving the heck out of this. Like technology can make your life so much easier. It can be super overwhelming. However, if you truly use it as a tool, it can open up so many doors and be so helpful from the art making process and a marketing standpoint.
We definitely will have to have a conversation about what if the old masters had technology. So stay
Oh
tuned
man.
for that one. But for now, that's a wrap on today's conversation. And we really hope you enjoyed this episode.
As always, both of our blogs will be linked in the show notes. So you can find all the episode notes there, resources we talked about, and links for all of our other podcast episodes.
And if you want to stay connected with us in between episodes and share what you have learned, you can follow us on social media. Amay Art across all platforms.
And I'm J Sanders Studio across all platforms. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.